Okay, thank you guys all for joining this morning. Happy Sunday, day 2 of our ASA District 2 conference. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Maria Maranga. Dr. Maranga received her dental degree from NYU College of Dentistry. She is a member of the American Association of Endodontists, American Association of Women Dentists, American College of Dentists, and International College of Dentists. Dr. Maranga was voted at this past ADA House of Delegates to serve as the second vice president, which is a huge deal, so we're lucky to have her here. She's a past chair of the ADA Council on Membership and past president of the Suffolk County Dental Society. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Maranga.
Good morning, sleepy heads. I'm so excited that everyone is awake. So my presentation has an odd name, but it's coming from a position of being involved with diversity and inclusion at the ADA level. So I'll start off with some background information. So when I was in dental school, when I started dental school in 1984, we were only represented women, maybe 20% of the class was that. My roommate's mom was one of 3 women at NYU at that time. So that was 1957 when she had gone to NYU for dental school. So now, as we know, gender representation for females are over 50% in almost all schools, and in some schools, like Tufts, it's over 60%. Now, why are these numbers important? They're important because just because the numbers are going up doesn't mean that the ability to have access to leadership roles has gone up as well. So the ADA has put many plans of trying to bridge these gaps. So we call that diversity and inclusion because women and diverse ethnic groups have always lagged behind in being allowed, not so much allowed, but having the opportunity to seek out leadership positions. So my title of Common Goals of Inclusion Through Diverse Pathways, we'll talk about a couple of those situations and my personal journey through it. Next slide, please. So in order to define leadership and how to explore how a dental student becomes a resident and then becomes a member of a local dental society chapter and then seeks out leadership positions, joining a committee, those things, need mentoring. They need someone to come from the background to the foreground to sometimes literally take you by the hand to come forward so that you can see opportunities that may be available to you. We'll discuss some leadership selection processes and then why there are barriers, and there are still barriers. There are barriers in society, there are barriers in gender representation of how, income disparaging still exists, and how companies actually are, like Google and other large companies are trying to make that amended. Identify opportunities for change and support. And we need to look at our mothership, which is the ADA. Next slide, please. So what is diversity and why is it so important to all of us here today? Diversity is a condition of having or being composed of many different elements, a point of difference. The ADA defines diversity through many dimensions, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, national origin, gender identity, age, physical disabilities, qualities, sexual orientation, religious and or ideological beliefs, professional practice choices, and personal lifestyle preferences. So the block that's created in the corner here is very important. The populations of people that we treat, there are a lot of studies that show that people would like to be treated by someone that looks more like them. And if somebody walks in a room and they don't look like them, they may not get a full understanding of what their oral health is because they're not comfortable with the person that's providing the care. And that's something that we really need to focus on in order to make sure that our care is actually being delivered in a way that is advantageous to the patient population that we need to continue to treat. Next slide, please. So inclusion is a different set of skills. So inclusion happens when people feel that they are able to contribute to a situation, they're able to contribute to a program or have the ability to actually make a project happen. And the differences between all of us are valued. So if somebody has a different idea, it's like, okay, oh, that's a typical answer. Thank you for saying that. And then just brushed aside. Inclusion happens when we value everyone's opinion. We respect their opinion as another human being who's contributing to this. We hear it, but more important, we understand it. And so many times we may hear it and just blow it aside, but that's not the way inclusion needs to happen. The values of what we have from each other and the differences need to make sure that they're out there in front and that we are embracing them at all times. Next slide, please. So the ADA's commitment to diversity and inclusion is multifaceted. This definition has been changed so many times. When I was at the ADA Diversity and Leadership Program back in 2001, I believe, it had already gone through 3 revisions of the information, but it takes on a new face every time we have another experience, whether in socially or politically. We want to make sure that we are up to date and we can actually come and rise to the cause. So the new ADA's definition on diversity is as what it says here. Defines diversity through many dimensions, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, national origin, gender identity, one's age, one's physical abilities and qualities, sexual orientation, religious and or ideological beliefs, professional practice choices, and personal lifestyle preferences. So that's the definition that we're working on from this morning. Okay. So this is the statement, and we have remodeled the statement a million times, and it's tweaking so much that this is actually, we believe, fosters like the best amount of information and how we can put this forward for our students, our residents, and our young dentists. So the American Dental Association strives to model diversity and inclusion in everything that we do. We believe that these foster an innovative and dynamic culture and lead to sustainable results. That allows us to further advance the dental profession, which is why we're all here this morning, improve oral health of the public, which is what I was alluding to earlier, and promote equity and access to care, which is why we are all taking the oath, those of you who are seniors, to make sure that we do no harm, but we do it in an understanding of how we have to have people have access to oral health care. As a result, we serve and support the different identities, the beliefs, the perspectives of a diverse membership, meaning all of us, our leadership, our workforce, staff, and as well as a wide range of communities and organizations that the ADA is associated with. The diversity experience of the ADA stems from long-running programs, from engaging a wide range of members and non-members in the association affairs. We hope to reduce the oral health disparities among population groups, leadership development for diverse dentists, and diversity education for current and future leaders of the ADA. Next slide, please. So the context and the organizational perspective of diversity and inclusion, and sometimes I'll just call it D&I, is representative of the total profession being less diverse of the US population. ADA membership being less diverse than the dental profession, and ADA leadership even being less diverse than the ADA membership. So we look at the dental workforce and it's becoming more diverse, but what does that actually mean for us in terms of accelerating pathways of leadership? Dentists of diverse backgrounds continue to lag behind in ADA membership market share, leading back to the area of the statement from inclusion that said we need to value everyone's opinions and make sure that we understood and absorb them in. A disparity exists between membership diversity and leadership diversity across many levels of the ADA still. Next slide, please. Now, the business model and the business case for advancing diversity and inclusion is this. We are at a point where membership is going down. There are a lot of new dentists that after year 5, they get frustrated and they go, I can't really pay dues anymore. I'm not really seeing any value. We need to make sure that members understand so that we don't end up like our medical school students and residents, the model of that, where they are only representing 18 to 24% of their national numbers of physicians. So broader diversity is now reflected in our profession, like we said, including women, ethnically diverse groups, and group practice dentists. When I was chair of the council of membership, there was a student representative, and it was said that he did not feel comfortable telling the group here that we had that he was going to work for a DSO. That shouldn't be. That shouldn't be a problem that somebody is choosing that practice model to give patient care. And not everyone stays in a DSO, for a whole lifetime. Some stay for 5 years, some stay for 10 years, some actually end up buying into, the percentage of what a particular DSO has to offer. But the fact that here he was and could not say to the membership group that we were here that he was going to, work for a DSO shows us that there is a problem. That should have been a very comfortable group for anyone to have been spoken that what their choices were going to be. And yet it had to be hidden. And so there's a bias there. And those are things that we need to change. We have to make people of all walks of what their professional life looks like to make sure that they can feel, comforted by us. And these are still growing market segments that we need representation where ADA market share tends to be still on the lag. Ongoing diversity gaps will continue to reduce ADA's market share, specifically with new dentists, like I explained earlier, by year 5. And why is that all important? You had heard so much information on day 1 of your presentations about advocacy. When we don't have the numbers, we can't ask for information. Instead of speaking to congressmen, we get only their aides. Instead of speaking to legislators, we get, an email instead. The numbers need to be there all the time, and we need to make sure that the way our market share is and the other groups of how the profession is being seen is representative in the numbers. And that will lead to continued sustainability for our advocacy programs. And, the chart here shows, groups, where all dentists are and some of the new dentists, we need to keep new dentists engaged. Those of you who are going to be staying, in New York, we'll have to do a 1-year GPR. Please stay involved during that year. All of you right now have really great ASDA fever, rah, rah. And when you go to a GPR, you kind of like lose that. There's no place where you feel like you're fitting in. You're learning other things about technical skill issues, how to, run around the hospital and take call and do things like that. But the component of your, ADA and ASDA, connection of, being your own cheerleader sometimes fades. And I encourage you through whatever component locally where your hospital is located, please get involved. They would love to have, residents on, committees so that you could continue this path that you have from, being ASDA students to being ADA, true members, okay? Next slide, please. So again, here's more. So there's a bunch of definitions on the side. Not taking action to enhance diversity and inclusion across the levels of ADA will result in many missed opportunities for us and for you to shape actually the industry and make relevance for the association to women groups, to diverse groups, to new dentists entering our profession. And that would end up having a severe negative impact on the ADA's standing credibility and the ability to advocate, which is what I was saying before. And that minimizes then the influence that the association has as leaders in oral health. So there's many definitions on the right-hand side, but intentional inclusion is what we are after. The organization and its leadership have made a formal commitment to diversity and inclusion, and structural efforts are there in place to advance these efforts. And that's the path that the ADA, states and local dental associations are going for, intentional inclusion. Next slide, please. So it's important to gain diverse perspectives to sustain the ADA in the future. Striving to have the association's leadership reflect its overall membership composition for its greatest success will shape the industry and demonstrate relevance for a wide variety of current and future dentists. Best practices leadership standards across a variety of industries, including corporate, healthcare and associations, industries. All of this suggests that an association's leadership and governance should reflect the very constituents that it serves. And this is done not just in our association, it's done in many of the other dental organizations. I'm also a board member of the AAWD. We recently just did this again. Um, Big business companies, big tech firms, all of this goes and reflects and goes backwards and say, hey, what are we doing? We have to make sure that, we can feel that our employees feel more inclusive, that the community understands that we're dedicated to including and having more diverse populations of people employed, and how that's going to affect what, the communities that we serve. Research, advises organizations that have leaderships that come from diverse backgrounds can actually offer a wider range of perspectives, position themselves to be more credible and relevant, and are more likely to attract customers and members from broader demographics. So years ago, like I was saying, Google had taken a hard look at themselves, and they had had a timeline put in place for them to have the ability to have a greater female population of leaders at top positions, and have more diverse people being hired. And all that leads to Google having more creativity, different perspectives. And what that does is that helps their bottom line in a different way, because they didn't see like the after effect that if they did this, this was going to happen. So when we talk about business models, yes, it's nice to say, okay, I want to affect society. And that's where we all strive to, so that we can change some of the disparity things that we are seeing, in oral health. And, companies, look at it as, different, but as long as they're on board to actually increase diversity and inclusion, we're happy to partner with them. Next slide, please. So you see in the green column, diversity means increase in numbers, but inclusion, which is the part that we've been trying to look at, includes making leadership, making cultural changes, systems, and having policies in place so that new leaders can come from the back of the room to the front of the room. And that's important. So many times as a female, I've heard stories of, well, I went on maternity leave, or I had 2 children and I wanted to come back to a local dental society, but I was told I had to, wait my turn all over again. I lost my position. That shouldn't be. That should be a thing where, you had already been on X amount of committees, and that now that's a different thing. That doesn't happen to the same extent it did, 15, 20 years ago. But that was some of the frustrating things for, women dentists, if they wanted to try to excel at a leadership position and still have a family at the same time. When they came back, when they were ready, when the children were already in daycare or childcare situations that were more manageable, they were told they needed to start over again. And that becomes a frustrating, thing for a lot of people. So systemic exclusions will negate membership growth efforts by negatively impacting the member and potential member experience. So there are many programs that the New Dentist Committee at the ADA have gone on to propose, women who, and there's some series too that the ADA has put out. There's a slide on that later. Women in pregnancy, women after divorce, women in this kind of, position, because, people always feel like that they're the only ones that are in this category, or that they're feeling the only way. And there's so many people that are feeling that way. So it's good that the ADA has recognized this, and the New Dentist Committee was adamant about making sure that different groups felt really included and put out these practices so that we could understand, groups that we hadn't, looked at before. So while diversity focuses on the differences in numbers, which is why that's the numbers is only in the green category of diversity, Inclusion promotes culture where everyone, despite their differences, is welcome, represented, and are valued for what they are thinking. An organization's journey to achieve this inclusion begins with intentionally putting people in positions where they could be mentored for future positions. Next slide, please. So the ADA's diversity and inclusion plan. So yes, growth is necessary. Membership growth is necessary in the categories that we had discussed. And in order to do that, the 3 diversity inclusion pillars will be the capacity, membership, and taking care of the public. Next slide, please. So pillar 1, capacity, is to build diversity and inclusion capacity. The objective would be to improve organizational effectiveness at the national level around diversity and inclusion. So if you see it from the mothership, hopefully it filters down to all of our local, state, and local levels. Next objective would be to improve the, you could go back to, thank you. The next objective would be to improve the overall organization effectiveness at the state and local levels around diversity and inclusion. Again, we see it from the ADA, we're going to see it at the state level. Hopefully local level will absorb it as well. The next objective to that would be to elevate awareness among members and prospective members as the nation's population regarding ADA's diversity efforts are advanced. Next slide, please. Membership, which is what my whole forte of my organized dentistry career has always been about. Grow membership diversity. Achieve and reach relevance to diverse groups, including women, ethnically diverse, new dentists, group practice dentists, and other key elements. Increase leadership representation for these diverse groups across all the levels of the ADA. And then improve the member experience for diverse groups, including women, ethnically diverse group practices, and other key elements. This pillar, I feel, if you make a member happy, a happy member brings another non-member to a meeting. So when we are able to make sure that I say to Michelle here, I want to take you to a meeting. Come, let me come pick you up if you don't have a ride, and I'll introduce you to some people. When Michelle goes back and then says, gee, they really took care of me. They were really interested in what I had to say. They just didn't say, hello, oh, you're bad. You're a new dentist. Okay, we'll see you at the end of the night. A happy member brings another happy member to the forefront. And then people start to think, hey, maybe it's not such a bad organization to fill out that due statement and click that button to rejoin. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to make sure that the experiences that we offer our members are sincerely, fuzzy wuzzy, okay? We want to make sure that everyone feels that, we have reached out effectively, that we have reached out and followed up with someone. If somebody says, okay, well, just not now, I can't really rejoin, or I don't want to attend this. All right, when would be a better time that we can talk? Would you like me to come by? Would you like me to just send out another email? Would you like me to send you a list of things that we've done for other members so you can see other things that we've been doing? That kind of thing, that personal, touch is really has worked well, but we need more, we need more people on the field to help do that. And that's why, membership starts at the local level. The grassroots of that start really in your own neighborhood. Next slide, please. And the public. So advancing the health of the public means that those of us who are armed with information from ADA and local areas can go out and actually make sure that public understands what we're doing, why we care so much about oral health. Provide pathway for programs, services, initiatives designed to positively impact the health of the public. And then collaborate with other dental associations and industry stakeholders to help advance the health of the public. So I wasn't going to bring this up here, but when a person enters the ADA's Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Program, they're asked to make a community service project. The ADA funds some of it for you, and then you take some courses on fundraising from ADA staff to get some additional funding for your project. But nearly all of them are wrapped around the ability to increase public awareness, public access to care, and then for us just to be their face in order to initiate and have some of these programs go forward. Next slide, please. All right, so here we'll look at some current initiatives and some of the programs I was speaking of. Next slide, please. So what opportunities exist to make positive changes in increasing the dental society's path to leadership and then go out into the community and then be an oral health advocate for us? Next slide. So this was my class, okay, back in 2010, 2011. I am stuck between my friend Pia with the orange and my friend Beverly with the striped blue and white shirt. That was my class at that time. So the Institute for Diversity and Leadership takes applications, and they're always due in April. You apply about a project or an oral health initiative that you feel passionate about. Now, there were two that I was very passionate, and I wanted to make some kind of impact, and I couldn't decide at all. So there on ADA Connect, there is a section for all of the institute leaders to like talk to each other and the applicants to talk to each other, and then past graduates to come on and give information. So I narrowed it down to one specific area. And it was when I had seen there was such an increase in the numbers of the HPV virus and oral cancer, I wanted to start with an educational program for middle school students, age students. And I felt that that educational program would then lead to an awareness from themselves and for their parents on their, sexual behavior at such an early age and how it would affect them later on. So I put together what I thought was a strong program. I picked a school district, a small charter school, and I got material from all across the country. And when I went to the first meeting for the PTA of that charter school, my easel was knocked off the stage. My paperwork was ripped and shredded in front of me, and I was told, what kind of nerve did I have to talk about have middle school children talking to them about sexual behavior, all sexual behavior, and it was very discouraging. Now this is like almost 1/3 of the way already through the year's project, and I didn't know what to do at all. I had obviously lost the trust of this, of the school that I was concentrating on, and the parents were outraged to have such, information, or that I wanted to have a course, for their middle school age children. So I left in tears, and my ripped up, flyers and the prospective, information that I had, and a broken easel. And the week later, we had a call, and one of the leaders of the institute is a gentleman, Keith, who had already been teaching us a lot of different negotiating skills from Northwestern University. And he had said, Maria, you need to reinvent yourself. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't have time to start a new project all over again. Plus, I already spent the money and I fundraised to get these other, items. He goes, somehow inside your brain, you're going to have to reinvent yourself so you regain the trust of the community. And I thought about it, and I was at work one day, and I had a police officer, and later on a janitorial person from a local school. And I said, you know what, darn it, I have to start with the community. And that's what I did. I brought the presentation with less graphic pictures of what oral pharyngeal cancer looks like to the local churches, leaders, to the fire department, the volunteer fire departments, to the police department, any particular area that I think that people would respect. I brought the presentation to that. And anytime there was a congregation where there was going to be like, a small health fair or something in a school or something at a church, I set up a small table and was giving oral cancer screenings for free so that people could see it wasn't so scary. And from that point on, it took almost 6 months after the program was already supposed to be completed, for the ADA's program. I finally got back into that school, and the parents allowed me to present the material. So when I was told to recreate myself and start from a different perspective, yeah, I had lost. I came in with information. I came in with our information. I came in with, a science brain, angle information, and excuse me, not realizing that that's not what was going to get the community to accept the information and allow them to sign off on the sign off sheet for their children to hear the presentation at a later time. I needed to regain their trust. And the only way I was able to do that was to literally go into the community with the people and then make sure that they were part of my ally team. And that's how I got back into the school district and then was able to finally give the presentations for that age group, which I still feel was a very vulnerable, group. And, many parents were in denial that their 12 and 13-year-old children were engaging in all sexual behavior, and it was just something that I really felt strong about as a cancer survivor as well. I wanted to make sure that I could get that project up and going, but it took an extra 6 months after my Diversity Institute year left for me to actually finish the project. So sometimes you may have a good idea and then all of a sudden something backfires and it's like, I could have thrown in the towel. I could have gone to a backup plan, by doing an easier program, just so I could have gotten the whole thing done to make our presentation and been on time. But I chose not to because I believed in the objectives of the program that I was trying to put together. And as us being oral health experts, I wanted to make sure that the community understood. And other groups then after that had wanted to hear, part of how they could incorporate that into their health classes and their other, things that they have for middle-aged students. So, and the woman next to me, Beverly, she was from Pennsylvania, and she took some of those slides and components and actually put it into her to a program she was working to at University of Pennsylvania as well. So not everything is always rosy. Just because you go through a program, you think, oh, you're untouchable. No, I got bashed a couple of times, and but so even though here I was, asked to apply. I got into it. I felt okay. I saw some of the programs that other, previous, people in the leadership program had done. I was like, all right, this doesn't sound like such a terrible thing until you actually go in and do it. And then it's like you need a lot of help to like just put it rest of it, together. But you have to be creative, and that's what we ask all of us, right? We want to make sure that information that we have about oral health and access to care stays relevant and that we can be part of the solution. So this is a good place to start. And now I'm going to talk about some of the ways of how this actually can impact us as a profession and as young dental leaders. Okay, next slide. So the history of the Institute for Diversity and Leadership came when it was developed at the ADA House of Delegates in 2002. It was originally designed just to mentor, promising young leaders, and then hopefully build some lifetime relationships with diverse dentists, and then strengthen all the stakeholder institutions. But it evolved into so much more, and it continues to evolve with strong alumni in order to help and diversity and inclusion community across the ADA and then their communities as well. Some of the best friends that I have came from the DNI leadership program. We're still friends, and there is one common thing that we have together, and that's service to the public. Next slide, please. So Diversity Institute. It was finally then established in 2003 after it passed the House of Delegates in 2002. And each year, many, many people apply for it. And it gives opportunities to so many in the United States. Next slide, please. It enhances leadership skills and you gain leadership experiences by strengthening professional network and building a lifetime of supportive relationships with friends. We then set new leadership pathways within our profession and then our communities as well. Next slide, please. The 3 sessions are held in Chicago, of course not right now. And they're led by faculty from Northwestern, the Kellogg School of Management, and Duke. And they focus on the following things: developing a vision, meaning putting a strategy for your initiative program to start together; team building, negotiations, which is, I had to learn that the hard way; decision making, marketing. You also learn fundraising for your project, and then effective presentations by role playing with other members of your group. Next slide, please. Between the in-person sessions, the program requires classmates to participate in quarterly 60-minute calls with the Institute faculty through ADA Connect and online SharePoint communities for the class communications. Next slide. So the leadership experience, an integral part of the learning, is having the participants put the leadership principles and training they received into their community service practical use. Next slide, please. Over the course of the 1 year, participants, select, as I said, an issue or a challenge in their local community and organize or make a professional judgment and develop and then execute the plan to address this problem. Next slide. So these are some of the topics and some of the areas for the last 15 years that have interested some of the participants: patient care, access to care, mentorship, prevention and education, oral health care awareness, like the one I chose, careers in dentistry, children's oral health, and access to care for veterans. Next slide. Leadership paths. Institute alumni have been selected for so many different positions as volunteers in the ADA governance. We see them at the board's strategic planning committee, diversity inclusion committee, which I did a year after I rolled off of my position. That was a 3-year term. The new dentist committee and the ADA House of Delegates. Next slide, please. So if we look at different things and we break some of this, the Institute alumni have gone on to serve as board members for so many different things. Nearly half of the alumni involved in their state and local societies, they've stayed active, which is what the purpose was. Or they've gone to other, dental organizations, the Hispanic Dental Association, the National Dental Association, the one that I'm involved in, the AAWD. And I have friends in the Society of American Indian Dentists and non-dental society organizations, as well as becoming a board member of the State Board of Regents, residency programs, or community health center directors. Next slide, please. Even these national positions have been held by members of the Institute: ADA First Vice President, ADA Strategic Planning, Council on Membership, Communications, Government Affairs, Access to Care, New Dentist Committee, Board of Trustees, Standing Committee on the Diversity and Inclusion, like I said earlier, ADA House of Delegates. ADA Success Programs is a really big, it's an amazing program in order to allow speaking opportunities for individuals who would like to go to other states or other dental schools to, talk about practical things of dentistry. Officers and leaders at national levels that include all of the information in the groups that I spoke of previously. Next slide, please. State and local positions. So we find our alumni all over, and they've had that ability to do so because they were able to make connections with others across the country. Mentoring, government affairs, access. Dentists collaborate with physicians and nurses in healthcare institutions all over the place. Next slide, please. Alumni have mobilized growing numbers of dentists from across to help and sustain annual events to serve United States military veterans. So it was an idea that 3 alumni had put together, and every Veterans Day, we send out, information. So there's either a local thing in your area, or you can actually have a Veterans Day, in your office. About a year and a half ago, I approached Dean Hirsch at NYU. And those of you who are at NYU know that we have on Saturdays, twice a month, military veterans, event where we see and we do the whole gamut of care. We have labs involved. And so it's not just the screening, it's actually that we take care of the veterans and their family. And then we have outsourced the maintenance to local dentists according to the zip code from where the patient comes to. So it's a really great program. I'm really proud that Dean Hirsch was able to get it off the ground. He's not there now, but there are a lot of other good people that are still on board to make sure that we continue with it. And community leaders serve on so many different boards of community organizations. most of them school, type of, for healthcare. Another slide, please. So after we saw that the program was such a great success for making leaders and making diverse communities understand that we're here to help, and we're going to take care of as many groups as we want to to expand to. The program expanded too, and then it went to 25 participants, and we've had so many different summits with different groups so that we could all gauge everyone's objective. And our objective from all the other dental association groups that we have collaborated with is to make sure the increase of access to care and oral health recognition. Next slide, please. And like I said, these are the groups that we have partnered with, and we have gone to different states. They don't only take place in Chicago. Right now, none of it is taking place. But the 2020 Collaborative Initiative will be to develop cultural awareness and acceptance in programs targeting individuals that treat patients of different cultural backgrounds. So we want to grow that base and give dentists the tools to be able to go out in communities and really make a difference this year. Next slide, please. So the ADA put together an accelerated series. I was speaking about this earlier, and these are some of the topics. What makes humans happy, preparing for pregnancy, why crazy busy isn't sustainable, practicing in a pandemic, what our data has shown, finding the right practice that fits you and your needs at a particular time in your life, and decoding the business matter. So these are all new programs that the ADA has developed after we saw metrics of things that worked and didn't work. Next slide, please. And recently I was on this call, and every single one of these presenters had a great story about their diverse experience as a diverse dentist. And it was really great to hear all of them, talk about different things that they had to go through, or different, positive and negative things, and how they rose above, so many of it to be a leader in their local community now. So it was really good. And all four was totally, this actually was recorded. So if you ever want to hear the whole showcase, you could, tap into it, and it's called Amplifying the Voices, a series of conversations on diversity and inclusion. Next slide. So like I said earlier, eligibility and application form is always at ada.org/diversity institute, and applications are always due on April 30th, I believe. And Henry Schein and Procter & Gamble have been a long-time supporter, for this program. Next slide, please. So where do you go next? You want to increase paths to leadership. You want to take what you learned as the dental student through your residency into your new dentist, profession. Next slide, please. So in creating tomorrow's leaders, we need to identify potential leaders from now. And then we need to follow up on potential leaders and nurture them. We can't just say, yes, you'll be the one that we're going to keep an eye on. And that we need to make sure that there is a pattern and a direct and an intentional choosing of future leaders, so that we can make sure we hook them up with good mentors, so that they can actually get the experience of being, part of the solution to so many of the problems we face in oral health. Next slide, please. So my number one thing would be to look to your local community, really see what challenges or something that you think you can actually have a part of the solution, and then try to put a program together with the help of, ADA staff and the community that's online for this. Next slide, please. So if you know an aspiring leader, once you leave this your ASDA days and into your new dentist days, who really embodies the ADA's definition of diversity, consider them for applying for the next institute class. Remember, you don't have to already be a leader to apply. You can just be, we've had residents that were, we had an endo resident once, which was pretty interesting, that but he had a really nice program of trying to make sure that people didn't get teeth extracted, that they had the opportunity in a community where he was working with part-time on the weekend, that they had the opportunity for keeping teeth, and he put a really strong presentation as a resident together. Next slide. So we'll open it up for some questions. Remember, you can always get me at apexlocator60@gmail.com or marangam@ada.org, which is my other email address. So Michelle, let's open up to any questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maranga. I really enjoyed your presentation, especially the diversity is the numbers, but inclusion is like including in the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're a little short on time, but I had 2 questions that were privately sent to me.
Okay.
So the first one is, I've personally encountered this situation a lot of times. A person asks me where I'm going to school and I reply with UB Dental and they say, oh, to be a hygienist? At first I thought this was because they didn't understand, but I grew to realize it might be because I'm female. Any recommendations on how to handle the situation, and or do you think this stereotype will end anytime soon?
I still get that at a dental meeting. So let's say that I'm walking with a group of my residents and some of them are male, and we'll go up to a counter to look at a new product or something that I want to purchase. And all of a sudden their eyes will shift and go do, 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 as if they're going to buy it. Meanwhile, I'm buying the product for them to use in the clinic. So yes, at some point at this age, of trying to be inclusive, it is difficult and it's frustrating when somebody says, oh, you must be the hygienist, or are you if I'm up even at my own office, I'm at the front desk or something, someone says, is the dentist running behind? I go, I am the dentist, but you can ask me. I try to make maybe like a small joke of it. So if somebody said to you, oh, you're going to UB, you must be in the hygiene program and everything, I would say, well, I can do hygiene, but I'm really prepared, better to actually work on your teeth or something anecdotal like that, so that it doesn't offend the person asking the question and you feel you got, a little bit of, input into what they have to see. It's difficult, but now there are so many of us out there. You know, it's less and less, but like I said, sometimes if I'm standing up at the front desk, they'll be, is the doctor on time? Is she going to do this? What is she going to do today? And I'm like, well, as soon as I get you in the chair, well, I'll be happy to answer those questions. And they go, oh, I didn't realize. So there will be that for, some time. And we just have to stay focused and act in a professional, way of answering the question. And hopefully it will be less.
Thank you for that input. That's a great advice. I will use that. And the next question we have is, how do you recommend we start promoting diversity and inclusion now in our role with students?
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing, because when I look at dental students, you are already ahead of the game, because you have, your lab partner is diverse. Your lab, someone alphabetically, when I was in NYU, everybody sat alphabetically in rows. You are already seeing, this surge of more ethnically diverse dentists and genders, a bit, with more females. So you already have that edge. I mean, when I said earlier about that, it was only 20% when I went to school, and so this is something interesting. So all of you have loops now, but the first loop company, Design for Visions, came to NYU, and we were given the opportunity to have the glasses made, but they made the focal length according to a man's arm length. And they had to come back and redo all of the women's, better dimensions, because it was too far away in this direction. So even though they, they were going to offer it to everyone, they didn't take in that women may be more petite, or that their arm length, and then the focal distance would be different. So they had to redo all of the glassware for the lenses, and they weren't really happy about that. But there was something that they didn't see inherently, that women may be shorter or have a different arm length. So it becomes becomes a difference. But you already have everyone with loops on. You have different things. You see it among yourselves now, and always just be kind to each other. You have, in order to promote each other, be happy for each other, or say, you know what, I looked up and I saw that there was a program you would fit perfectly in. There'll come your time around that somebody will come to you and say, I saw this online. I think that you would be good to apply for it. Let's try to get you recommendations. That's all it takes. It just takes somebody taking someone by the hand and helping them out to make sure that they can, fit into a situation. But you already have that opportunity because, you have already a more diverse population among you. It's older, practitioners like us that, it's, someone will walk in and go, okay, well, hello, but let's not talk to that. Even the conversation, if you want to walk into a room, let's gear it to what you're interested in. Tell me what you're interested in instead of that person trying to fit into the conversation that's already there. So I think those would be good points of starting that.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Maranga. Thank you for sharing all of your infinite wisdom with us,
Mhm.
and taking the time out of your Sunday morning to be here.